Welcome, everybody, to our second episode of our podcast, Philosophical Science, where we discuss different topics that have to do with philosophy.
If you don't know us, my name is Luis Mario, and my friend is Luis Fernando, and we are the hosts of this podcast.
For the first timers, the way in which this podcast works is that you will be submitting the topic that you want us to talk about, and we will choose randomly one of the topics.
Now, I will proceed to grab the topic of the day. Today, we will talk about fast fashion. Is it ethically correct to buy from fast fashion brands?
Wow, the topic for today is very interesting.
Yes, but I believe we should explain for the ones that don't know about philosophy.
Well, now it's time for our favorite section, Philosophy for Dummies. Hello, I am Luis Fer, your host and teacher in Philosophy for Dummies.
Teacher, what does ethics mean?
Well, my friend, ethics is the branch of philosophy that deals with what is wrong and what is right. In a way, it seeks to establish norms or standards to our conduct.
Mm. And what defines what is good and what is bad?
That's a very good question, friend. First of all, ethics divides into three main branches: deontology, theology, and virtue ethics. Deontology is the branch that states that an action is ethically correct if it is focused on following a set of rules. Theology is the branch that defines if an action is ethically correct based on the good or bad of its consequences and the scope from them. And virtue ethics is the branch that focuses on the morality of the person. In this case, also we will hear the term utilitarianism, which is part of theology that states that a morally right action is the action that seeks the greater good.
Wow, thanks, teacher.
You're welcome, mates. Till next time.
Now that we know more about the topic, I think we can start. Thanks, teacher. Fast fashion is a term used to describe clothing designs that move quickly from the catwalk to the stores in order to take advantage of trends. These collections are often based on styles presented in the Fashion Week runway, shows, or worn by celebrities. Fast fashion allows mainstream consumers to purchase the hot new look or the next big thing at an affordable price.
Over the past decade, sustainability and ethical conduct have begun to matter in fashion. Companies have realized that affordable and trend sensitive fashion, while typically highly profitable, also raises ethical issues. According to the Institute of Sustainable Communication, the clothing industry is the second highest polluter of clean water. Retailers of fast fashion dump toxic chemicals into clean water supplies because clothing production is a land and water intensive industry.
And that's not all. A report published in MIT News stated that most fast fashion retailers outsource their production to developing countries where resources and labor come cheap and where they still depend on coal power for electricity. As a result, the apparel industry is, according to Forbes, responsible for 10% of all carbon emissions globally.
Fast fashion clothing is made from oil based polyester, which has now replaced cotton as the number one fiber in our clothing. As noted in a recent Fast Company report, factories producing polyester without wastewater treatment systems can release potentially dangerous substances including antimony, cobalt, manganese salts, sodium bromide, and titanium dioxide into the environment. As an oil based plastic, polyester does not biodegrade like natural fibers. Rather, it stays in landfills for several decades at least and potentially for hundreds of years.
Now, given a proper intro to the public, let's focus on the main question. Is it ethically correct to buy products from the fast fashion industry?
Well, my friend, the answer is no. It is not ethically correct to buy products from the fast fashion industry because, according to utilitarianism, it doesn't seek the greater good. Therefore, not buying causes less consequences for humanity, and at the end, it causes the greatest happiness for most people. This is because the environment is less harmed and the workers are not exploited.
Can you please further explain?
Of course, Focusing on the theological branch of ethics, by not buying from the fast fashion industry, the scope of the consequences is much less than buying from it. What is the action that produces the most good? Less harm for the environment, less exploitation of workers. It pursues pleasure and happiness for the most people possible. According to John Stuart Mill, a philosopher, pleasure seeking has to consider that there are different types of pleasure and happiness and that they can be measured. We got two actions in here: buying fast fashion clothing or not buying fast fashion clothing. By buying the clothes, the consequences are exploiting the workers in developing countries, harming the environment, and the only consequences not considered bad is that the people get their clothes. And by not buying the clothes, the consequences are not exploiting the workers, not harming the environment, but the people don't get their clothes. By not buying their clothes, we're helping the environment, helping the people that are being exploited. And as obviously seen, not buying the clothes causes the most good. Therefore, I'm choosing the greater good, the greater happiness, and the right action according to utilitarianism.
Well, I do believe that it is ethically correct to buy from fast fashion brands, since the actions produce positive consequences, which is morally right according to teleology.
But why?
Well, as we mentioned before, teleology states if something is morally right or wrong based on the scope of its consequences. Applying theology to this case, the consequences of buying from fast fashion companies makes these workers continue being paid. Since they live in countries where working conditions are harsh and the job competition is hard, paying them contributes to their well-being. As a result, the consequences of buying from the fast fashion industry is morally correct.
Well, my friend, I see some weak points in your argument. First of all, theology, as you said, it does seek the less consequences produced, although the consequences produced from buying from the industry does overcome the consequences from not buying. Damaging the planet, creating pollution, exploiting the workers who do not receive a proper wage. You see, some fast fashion companies factories are set in developing countries. These people, as you said, they struggle for living, and sometimes they have no voice on their countries. Therefore, by not buying from these companies, it will cause them to wake up and fight against this unfairness. To my point of view, and for most people, this is what seeks the greater good as well.
Well, I believe that we have talked long enough about the topic. I know that there are many other points we could talk about, like continue talking about unfairness and them waking up against the inequalities, but unfortunately, our time for this podcast is over. I think that in this case, you made me change my point of view.
Really?
Yes, talking about the situation made me realize that I forgot to think about other important points. We can conclude that it is ethically incorrect to buy from the fast fashion industry.
Well, you also made me think about other points, like how it is one of the only ways in which they could get paid. To conclude, I believe that we can better say that we complemented each other's ideas, giving us a broader and wider view to the topic.
I like that. As always, thank you for listening to us on another episode of Philosophical Times.
See you on the next episode.